Can't get enough of Kelly and Ramya?
We're now on YouTube for you to indulge in highlights from our show.
So we've been talking a lot about emergencies, evacuations, extreme weather conditions and affecting people with disabilities. And we're pretty much continuing on that thread now because it's not an uncommon story. A person who uses a wheelchair is trapped in a building when the elevator goes out during an emergency. But we want to talk about how you can accommodate and compensate for these kinds of things. There are alternate ways to overcome this dangerous barrier, and one of them is by this product, the Evac Chair. So to talk more about this very interesting product and project initiative really is Steve Agisnaga, Vice President of Global Operations for Evac Chair, speaking to us from Newmarket, Ontario. Very local. Steve, it's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Can you start off by answering the most obvious question for us? How does the Evac Chair work that your company developed?
So the Evac Chair was first developed in 1982, 40 years ago, out of New York. It's about 41 inches tall, about 20 inches wide. Just imagine a wheelchair, but not with a 90-degree seat. The seating is hammock style, so it's dipped in. This allows for anybody that's seated or has to be transferred into the Evac Chair is safely inserted in the chair and can't pop out or fall out. The tracks that are parallel at a 45-degree angle to the floor are specially designed so they work with friction, and it allows for a descent down the stairs, a controlled descent. So it's not going fast. You have full control of the chair, and you can either go fast or slow to quickly exit and safely exit a building, school, a corporate office, whatever the need is to get out of a building quickly and safely.
Okay. Steve, give us an idea of, well, of course, how many people do you need to utilize the chair, or give us that picture of an example of a situation and how this chair would be implemented and brought into play.
Of course. So that's the beauty about the Evac Chair. Back in the day, you would need 4 to 6 people to evacuate somebody in a wheelchair or even an older evacuation chair. The Evac Chair is a one-person operation. So once the person that needs assistance to exit the facility is seated in the chair, then one person behind can safely and quickly operate the chair to exit a building. So it's a one-person operation.
Nice.
Okay,
nice.
but it's a one-person operation, and just to reiterate, there is someone helping the person who uses a wheelchair get into the Evac Chair, down the stairs out of the building safely, right?
Yeah, so of course. So we want to keep in mind that the Evac Chair is not solely for those that are in wheelchairs, because we have people with visible disabilities and invisible disabilities, and they may have upper body strength to self-transport into the chair.
Okay.
If they do not, then the person that is operating the chair, who would be assisting, would put the brakes on the chair and possibly bear hug or assist the individual to transfer into the chair safely as well.
Okay.
Okay. Steve, when I think of this chair, where would I find it? Is it something that we would understand that could come in an emergency situation for a specific situation, or would it be on site if a person felt that in an emergency they would need this kind of assistance due to whatever kind of example we could give? And like you said, don't picture somebody necessarily always being a wheelchair user. Where would we contextualize the chair is coming from?
Yeah, for sure. So we have to keep in mind that emergencies, as you guys were just discussing, could be a weather-related emergency. It could be a fire.
Yes.
It could be a gas leak, active shooters, anything where elevators stop functioning. And now somebody who may have some form of disability, visible or invisible, cannot navigate stairs. So that's where these chairs come into play. To give you examples, schools, senior care facilities, all types of corporate offices. Literally what we say is, wherever there's stairs, there should be an Evac Chair, because not everybody can safely navigate them.
Right. Sensitive question, perhaps, but you were talking about the form of the chair and some parts to actually helping someone into the chair and out of it. Is there a weight limit for the Evac Chair?
Yes. So we do have chairs that start at 400-pound weight capacity, and then we have bariatric ones that can hold up to 560 pounds. And then we have specialty devices that if the person is above that, that could also be transferred into our evacuation sleds. The beauty also about these products, they're made out of aluminum. They have a lifetime warranty, and they're in places, as we mentioned, Google, Apple, Samsung, Ford Motors, Tesla, all the big corporations are implementing them. It is mostly for them being proactive. It's not necessarily will they ever use it. Hopefully they don't. But the day an
That's right.
emergency occurs, they do want to make sure something is in place to save lives, which it has
Of
already.
course.
Is there more than one kind of chair? I mean, we talked about the weight parameters there when it
And the
comes to
sleds.
different, yeah, but is there anything that one would say, okay, this is our circumstance here, oh, well, this would be more of a chair, the kind of chair you'd need?
Yeah, of course. So we do have various models, as you mentioned. We have about 8 or 10 of them. The basic model, which is the one that we used at the 9/11 towers, which we can discuss further, is a basic model. And majority of the places will have a basic chair that they just want to have in place to get people out if there's an emergency. 400 pounds is a decent weight capacity. Now, from there, it starts to move up. Different safety features, additional seat belts, 4-point harness, footrest, armrest, just different features where people might want to have extra safety, or if the individual that could be potentially identified that would need help has more straps and more support for their body as well.
Okay. Can we talk about the towers, that circumstance?
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful example of how our chairs saved lives. Obviously, a tragedy that we'll never forget. The 9/11 towers. There was a gentleman named John Abruzzo who was on the 68th floor of the tower, and obviously he was in a 600-pound wheelchair. You can imagine that would be impossible for people to bring down 68 floors in an emergency. Uh, the Evac chair was just purchased for every floor of the 9/11 towers and for the World Trade Center, and it was still in the box. So imagine how
Wow.
easy it was for them. They pulled it out of the box. They took John Abruzzo out of his wheelchair. They placed him in the Evac chair, and they descended 68 floors. It did take about an hour's time because of the
Oh,
height,
wow. Yeah.
but he is alive and he tells a story. He shares that story all the time. And our Evac chair is actually at the 9/11 museum. It's actually there that it saved lives on that tragic day.
Wow.
It's a prime example, obviously, right? And as you said, he shares a story on podcasts, episodes, and all over the place, which is really incredible for your company, for the chair, but also just like obviously saying that we need this or this type of accommodation or device for any given scenario. Can you give us price ranges on the chairs, where it starts, where it ends?
Yeah, sure. So they're about $1,700 Canadian, up to $4,000. They're tax exempt because they're classified as a medical device. In Canada, there is associations that do support funding for families that may not have funding support, because we do have other devices that are battery operated for home use that can climb stairs up and down instead of installing a stair lift. Those are the options.
Okay.
Wow, that was kind of where I was going to go next, about supports, because it sounds so important, and we always hear of places sponsoring for other different equipment that we may want at a hockey arena or whatever it might be up here. But something like this sounds vital, and it's amazing when we talk about a circumstance like the trade tower, the money being put out for it, and that investment made in something that is priceless when you look at it, and something that's been around. It's not new, John, and it's incredible to kind of speak of something like this. And this goes back to our prior conversation about things in emergency situations that we just don't know about, which must be so frustrating to the company to say, guys, we're here. We've got something pretty amazing, pretty helpful, pretty life-saving in a certain circumstance. We hope you don't have to use, but again, how does that work for you guys trying to get it out there? I mean, I don't want to talk about the frustration,
No.
because you've got great examples of, hey, this works.
I love that you brought that up, because even if you were to go into a building today, you probably wouldn't see an Evac chair. We've sold hundreds of thousands worldwide, but the main obstacle is when you ask somebody, what do they do for an emergency? They say, we wait for the fire department. The firemen, the firewomen are heroes, but their job is not to save lives. Their job is to attend the emergency. Now, they will save a life, but how beautiful is it when the fire department arrives and they're told, everybody is out, focus on the emergency at hand. You don't need to risk your life, nor is anyone's life in danger. Everyone is out. That is what we want to hear. And that is the message we should let everybody know.
You address such an attitudinal barrier here, right? Like, it's that whole, we've talked about it multiple times on the show today already, that, you know, let's take responsibility for each other. Let's empathize with everybody, not just for now, but as our former guest Julia just said, for the future, right? Like, you might not have a disability now, but you may in the future. Also the older adults in our lives and that we live with in our communities, right? Like, the people who live around us. It's not just me going into my apartment and say, okay, well, I'm good, right? There's so much more to that. Also, I wanted to ask you that, you know, this is, in the perspective, a bit of a stopgap situation, right? Like, where no matter what your facility is like, what the infrastructure is like, what type of place you're working or living at, this Evac Chair is a solution, but it's a stopgap, right? Is there anything that it doesn't address, in your opinion, or that we should be addressing more carefully, similar to what Kelly brought up just a second ago?
Yeah, so there may be older facilities where the stairwells are very narrow, and space could be an obstacle. That is the only time we may say, hey, look, you're going to maybe have to use something else here, or a sled, or a different product, when the stairs are very, very narrow, or the landings are very, very tight, which is usually in older buildings.
Yep.
Because newer buildings today, the stairwells are very, very big, and that does not become an issue at all.
Okay.
Over the time the chair has been in existence, what would you say, John, the updates, the work where we've had to deal with discoveries like that? I mean, you can't go back and fix every building so the Evac Chair will work, and you can't change it because it already, the demand for it to be the way it is, you're learning what it needs, what makes it work, how it functions, who needs it the most, and in the circumstances that are going to be out there, and how fast the situation has to be to possibly, in an emergency, get somebody out of there as timely as possible. But over the time, from creation to now, has it changed much?
Yes, it has. So when the first product came out, it was a manual evacuation chair, which is still the most popular chair in the world, because it does the job. But as we've moved on in the last 4 years, we've developed battery operated, motorized evacuation chairs, which allow you to go down and up, no carrying, no lifting, one person just pushing a button, and the chair can go down or up with ease. And this has become a great product, not just for evacuations, but when elevators are out of service, which happens very often.
So
and
often.
There's somebody who can't navigate stairs. How do you bring them up and down? Right? It's not an emergency, but they can't now go up or down the stairs to live a normal life. So that battery operated chair has become a massive hit worldwide, especially for home use, where people are taking care of.
I was just going to ask you if that happens, John, how much of this moving forward might be that person who says, I would like one for that kind of use, or do we see it possibly being something with the hardware? And again, as time moves on, maybe technology helps out. Is it something we can see more chairs on a regular commercial level being utilized for everyday use? Is that possible?
You have no idea how people are not just saving thousands of dollars, because a stair lift, the ones that are fixed in a home, those cost $15,000, $20,000, and they're fixed in one area of the home. They're a fantastic product, especially if you live alone and you have no one to help you. But if you do have a family member that can operate the chair, just push the button, you've now avoided any modification in your home. But you have a product that you can use every single place there's stairs, outside, inside, visiting family and friends, traveling. One device for every single stair obstacle you may encounter. Somebody with visible disabilities, invisible, even elderly parents that we're taking care of at home. How many times do I go to people's homes and they have to sell their home because they cannot use the stairs, or getting a stair lift is just out of question. Or they live on the first floor because going up or down the stairs is an obstacle.
Right.
So this chair, which is our power chair, 800H model, allows them to live a normal life, an enjoyable life, and indoor and outdoor as well.
Yeah, I feel like we could have a whole another conversation, a part 2 with you on just inclusive design and how this kind of a thing really, helps us understand inclusive design better, right? Like it opens up the possibilities. Yeah, it's fantastic. Steve, thank you so much.
We work with a lot of accessibility auditors as well,
right,
worldwide. And one of the big projects we're doing right now is Scotiabank Arena in Toronto and the BMO Field.
Oh,
they're seeing the necessity
wow.
to have these in place for emergencies, especially with the World Cup coming in a few years to Canada. They want to make sure they have ways to save lives in case there was an emergency.
Yep, and just to
That's
accommodate. Thank you so much.
And to think ahead like that, it's beautiful. Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. We were speaking about the Evac Chair, and we were speaking with Steve Agisnaga, Vice President of Global Operations for Evac Chair Canada from Newmarket, Ontario. That's where he was joining us. A really fascinating conversation.
Thanks for watching.
You can catch Kelly and Ramya weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern on AMI.